Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well? Thank you so much for joining our panel discussion today. I'm very happy to have and to moderate this discussion. My name is Rania Ahmed. I'm a director of climate action from IOM, and discussing regional climate action adaptation durable solution in affected communities. I'm so happy to have here with us a very interesting panel that will lead the discussion and the conversation. We have my dear friend and colleague, Loretta, UNDRR, and she will take us through a very useful and exciting conversation from UNDRR perspective and how they've been supporting different ideas and actions. I also have with us one of our youth delegates, Simon, and I'm so happy that he is here with us today to present the youth voices affected by climate change and human mobility. We also have a representative from the EU that they will join us at the end of the panel, but we will give you a chance definitely at the end to ask questions and have a conversation. It's the end of the day, I'm sure everyone is tired, but we will ensure that we will have a space for conversation, for sharing views and opinions. I would like to start the conversation by actually a story from Simon. Simon is coming today as a climate activist and trained youth climate negotiator. He holds a bachelor degree in environmental engineering. In 2023, his community in Manyara experienced a major disaster that he will tell us about and how it shaped his activism. But I'm sure that it's not only shaped his activism, but also shaped him to grow older in his understanding, in his experience, and also in coming with innovative solutions to support his communities, whether young people, women, children, or elderly people. So it will be great to start this conversation hearing from Simon, and then we'll move on to the rest of the conversation. Simon, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Rania. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. Let me take this opportunity first to thank you, IOM, for this opportunity to support me to attend COP29 and also to create this space whereby I can share my own stories on what really happened back in my community. I'll start. It was December 2 during the night, 2023, whereby we experienced some rainfall, and our community thought like it's like a normal rainfall, like the one which we normally experience and every day. And early in the morning on the second day, which was the 3rd December, which it was a Sunday, where we start to hear some noise from the people who are living closer to the certain mountain which is located in Manyara called Hanang. Some of these noises, the people who are asking for help. So when we decided to go out, we saw like we thought it was a flood, but when we stepped on it, it was not water. It was like a heavy mud flood, which was accompanied with the stones and tree branches which were flowing from the top of the mountain. At that time, everyone tried to carry everything he can at that time and run, because we didn't know what to do at that time. And when in the morning when the sun came out, we saw the destruction which the mud flow which caused at that time. And we didn't get much help at that time because most of the roadblocks were already blocked, and the help which we expected to receive from our government and other people didn't arrive on time because the infrastructure were blocked. And also we didn't access water because also water infrastructure was also shattered. There was no electricity at that time also, because even infrastructure for electricity were also broken down. This disaster in my community, more than 80 people lost their life, 100 were hurt, and 100 of the people lost their businesses. lost their homes. Most of the community were forced to reallocate it to the primary school, whereby they can sit there and wait for the support. For that time, when we realized that the help is not going to come early, the community itself decided to take initiatives and providing the support to those survivors and rescue some people some who are trapped in uh, under the mud or under the tree branches. Uh, this experience actually taught me one thing, that our community was not ready to face this kind of disaster. And another thing is most of the community were not aware the real cause of this issue. Some, because in this mountain, which all these stones and tree branches and this mud which were coming from, it is a mountain where back in the days our elders used this mountain to pray and conduct some rituals in this mountain. And a few years back, the government restricted people to go and pray and provide some rituals in this mountain because to conserve the area. So the community was saying that this is the outcome of our elders being not prohibited to pray in this mountain. So everyone was saying this is the reason. So you can see that even the community were lacking awareness on this kind of the thing. And also another thing is our community was not prepared in response because also children lost their lives. Some children lost their lives. So you can see that in this kind of disasters, we need to have these preparedness measures. And in these preparedness measures, we need to include everyone, especially children and youth, because are most vulnerable in this kind of disasters. Because when it happens, it will be difficult for them to escape. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you so much. We can tell you it's very inspiring what you have said. And thank you for highlighting key important aspect, which is preparedness, early warning. And when we talk about preparedness and early warning, then I'm looking to Loretta, my colleague and friend. But I would like also to tell you that your story is not only inspiring because you just said it. It's inspiring because you are today speaking on behalf of your community and you present the voices of children, of young people and women as well. So thank you so much for saying the story. I think that in our discussion today, and thank you for bringing preparedness, the topic of the discussion is the regional approaches to climate resilience and durable solution linked to climate mobility in Africa. And I think when we talk about Africa and we talk about climate resilience, we talk about a multiple intensified crisis. It goes beyond only climate. And that's why early warning, early action, preparedness, bringing the voices of the community is even more important, because we need to put into consideration the context, the culture, and the other difficulties that communities in Africa are suffering from and struggling with. And I'm glad that we have Loretta with us, Chief of Risk Knowledge Monitoring and Capacity Building in UNDRR. And actually UNDRR are key leading agency in early warning for all initiative that led by UNSG. And she has a big experience in working and supporting communities to overcome different disasters in different countries across the globe over years of experience. And I will not say how many years, because we are always young and we'll never get old. we only get old in our experience. So I have a question to you after you heard the story of Simon, but also yesterday we had a very interesting discussion on early warning and update today, led by the UNSG and all the agencies and member states. And as one of the co-lead for the Early Warning for All initiative, if you can tell us and describe UNDRR orientation on displacement triggered by disaster and climate in the African context, and what kind of support you can bring us all together to support the communities.
Thank you, Rania, and thank you, Simon, for sharing your story. I wish I could say it was a unique story, but it's not. And unfortunately, we know that due to growing climate change impacts, compounded vulnerability, increased exposure to disaster events, that many others are likely to face a similar type of situation moving forward unless we take much stronger action and much more quickly to prevent these worst impacts of climate change in Africa. And as was mentioned, this is a phenomena around the world, but Africa has some specificities attached to it, why we really have to pay some special focus there. And linked to this is the whole question of early warnings. Now, we have been surveying countries to understand where do they stand with their early warning systems, and we know that unfortunately Africa is lagging behind, and less than half of the countries in Africa have effective early warning systems. And yet early warnings is one of the best ways, one of the most cost-effective adaptation measures to save lives and to preserve livelihoods during disaster events. So we know that as climate change stresses and shocks continue to grow, so will displacement. And we also know that it's not enough to prepare for displacement and prepare for disasters. We need to do far more to invest in prevention. And there are ways of preventing disaster-induced displacement. And it starts with understanding who is likely to be displaced and why. And often, these are the same populations that have been displaced in the past for similar types of hazardous events. Flooding is a very good example. We have many countries where we have recurrent flooding, for example, in river and basins in South Sudan, in the Zambezi Basin, amongst other places. This is an annualized event where populations are displaced. And yet, after the disaster event occurs, they go back to living in exactly the same location. The concept of building back better hasn't really been embedded yet in their disaster management strategies. Often the funding is not there. So we see patterns of recurrent displacement occurring. And this obviously has an impact on the socioeconomic well-being of these populations. The other type of displacement we're seeing in the context of disasters is prolonged displacement. And here you have, this is very often linked to drought, for example. Although I wouldn't very much expect to see extreme heat as that continues to grow to also lead to more prolonged displacement, loss of livelihoods. And Africa, unlike some of the European countries, often doesn't have social protection measures in place. And so when you lose your livelihood, you really fall into a category sometimes requiring humanitarian assistance. So there are some real reasons for us to focus our attention on Africa as a continent. And again, I believe that we can do far more to understand the risk of climatic events or extreme weather events and the risk of displacement occurring because of these events. Part of it is looking at historical data. Part of it is also, though, looking at future climate projections and doing modeling and trying to better understand this is likely where displacement is going to take place. So what kind of measures do we need to put in place to prevent this from happening or for ensuring that the displacement is as short a time as possible? And part of that is really looking beyond one sector and understanding you need a multi-sectoral approach that engages different line ministries. It could be legislation issues, it could be issues related to how disaster risk management agencies, evacuations occur. It's multifaceted. So you really do need a whole of government, a whole of society approach to dealing with it. The other issue, of course, is that once populations are displaced, and we have seen this in the context of Syria, for example, we've seen it in the context in Bangladesh, the populations that are displaced are moving into areas where they're facing new risks. These risks, of course, can be linked to climate change, but they can be linked also to sexual and gender-based violence. So we have to ensure that we really are having a full understanding of what is triggering the displacement and how we can lessen the impact to the extent possible. I will speak about early warning, if you'd like, and what we're trying to do, in particular in Africa, but more in general, in contexts that are facing high levels of displacement, fragility, high levels of refugees as well. If you'd like.
No, this will be great, and thank you so much for actually raising concern of countries like Syria and others because these are the example of countries that are struggling with multiple intensified crises. So even returnees cannot return back because they are struggling with water scarcity. So not only infrastructures that need huge investment, but also water scarcity, and now new influx of refugees coming from Lebanon and others countries. So all this need to be put into the table when we talk about preparedness, when we talk about disaster risk reduction, but also when we talk about responses to climate crisis, understanding that there is no one solution fit for all, but there is a contextualized solution that can fit for purpose. So yes, please, we would love to understand from UNDRR, definitely to hear from you, your contribution to the displacement agenda as well.
Sure. Yeah. So essentially, as was mentioned by Rania, the UN Secretary General issued a call to action really about early warning systems. And for 2 years, we have been working with multiple partners in the UN system, the Red Cross movement, to scale up early warning systems. And we know that early warning systems save lives. They preserve livelihoods. And they can also decrease displacement, especially prolonged displacement. But over the course of the past 2 years, we realized that there was a significant risk that certain countries will be left behind. And we call these countries fragile conflict and violent affected countries, FCV context. And so over the course of the last year, we have been working with various partners, including IOM. And we've just released 2 weeks ago in Windhoek, Namibia, a handbook on scaling up early warning in conflict and violent settings, fragile context. And the aim here was really to draw attention to the specificities of these countries and to really demonstrate that it's not one size that fits all. We know that there are countries that are facing high levels of fragility need special approaches. They need to be able to work with partners who are often not part of the hydrometeorological forecasting system, but humanitarian actors, non-state actors. We know that there are specific constraints that are being faced. For example, lack of access to population or communication challenges. So some special attention is required. But in addition to this, these countries also are less likely to be receiving climate finance, having difficulty attracting the type of resources needed to build their systems. And so this handbook is the very first step in mobilizing more action to really ensure there's more investment in fragile contexts with high levels of displaced populations. When I was in Windhoek, I had 2 governments come to me and say, my country has 7 million displaced people here. This was a DRC. How on earth do I provide early warning systems to them? Please come and help me figure this out. South Sudan, please make us your #1 priority. We need to provide the entirety of our population with early warning services. But how do we do this? We're a country at war, et cetera, et cetera. So we are launching a global effort now to really focus in on these countries that are less likely to have effective early warning systems, have access to finance. We are supporting an initiative by Cruise. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a multi-donor partnership where we've just supported them to develop operating procedures for working in fragile contexts. And we are collaborating with the Green Climate Fund as well to look at how to scale up early warning systems in contexts of high levels of fragility and displacement. But we also recognize that practical tools are useful. And so we are working now with IOM and other partners to develop some very practical tools on how to ensure displaced populations are included in early warning systems. This is important because we've just gone through an entire round of development of national strategies in several countries with high levels of refugees and displaced populations, and they never came up once in the planning for the national strategy. It's not at the forefront of thinking that you maybe have to put in place special measures. So we need to incorporate this much more, not only in terms of awareness raising, but much more also in supporting countries when they develop their plans and when they develop their systems. But beyond the work we're doing with early warning, we have really been trying to mobilize more attention on displacement. I was previously the chief in Asia Pacific, and we worked with IOM to set up a disaster displacement task force in the region. And it was very interesting to me because many governments didn't know such a thing existed, disaster-related displacement. They didn't understand it as displacement. And they didn't see what kind of preventative measures could be put in place. We hope to replicate that perhaps in other regions. But also, we want to have a better understanding of displacement interface with disasters. So working on the data, working on the analytics as well will be a priority moving forward for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Loretta. I think that you said a lot in a very short period of like minutes, which is amazing. And thank you for sharing also your experience from Asia region. And I think that you actually touched on something very important, which is the data. Because without the data and evidence, we don't know how to head, but also understanding the context and culture. It's very, very important. We mentioned Asia, we mentioned Africa, we mentioned a country like Syria. I think that there is a lot of solutions to support and ensure integration of preparedness, early warning measures, but it's very important to understand the constraints in every context and culture and how to work around it to ensure this happening. IOM as UNDRR, we're partnering with private sector to ensure we look into risks of using leverage artificial intelligence, maps, and I'm not a data person, but I know the power of data is amazing because it allows us to see and foresee the risks that can create further displacement in different countries across the globe. So it's one of the things that we partner together, and I think this is extremely important. But linking to that is how to work with the countries to ensure early action. And Loretta actually tackled two important points. Communities awareness, because a lot of the communities, when you go to them, and I remember a couple of years ago, and I'm Egyptian myself, and there was a research in New York, and I was in a meeting where they're presenting the research, and they said, Delta will drone. And we go and tell people, and people say, okay, let it drone, we're not moving anywhere. Yes, they are not moving because they don't have the understanding or the awareness or the solution where to move to. So I think this is one important aspect, raising the awareness, but also give the communities the solution. If they have to move where, or the solution to stay, and how can we help them to have an early action to stay, minimizing the loss and damage. But thank you so much for such a great interventions. And before we move to the next part of presentation by the EU member, I would like to open the floor because it's great to see, to have Simon with his experience from the field and have Loretta with her great experience from UNDRR to hear from you if you have any question on early warning, early action, which focus in Africa or maybe from other regions that can be lesson for us all to learn from. Any questions?
Thank you. Very interesting, great presentations. Is this on? I just would like to get perhaps a little more sense. You mentioned slow onset early warnings, and how does early warning work for more slow onset crises?
So I can speak about drought, and I can speak about, for example, even extreme heat. So understanding that a drought is going to be coming will allow triggering of certain mechanisms that would help countries, help populations shore up their coping capacities. If I can give you an example that I had in Asia with Mongolia and the Zood. I don't know if you're familiar with this weather phenomena known as the Zood, but it's essentially a winter drought. And what happens is that the cattle does not have enough food to eat, and they die. And of course, people are dependent on their livelihoods and their livestock. So knowing in advance that a disaster, a slow onset disaster like a drought or a Zood is about to occur, allows you to help communities put in place the coping capacities that are needed. In this case, what we were looking at was shoring up cash-based assistance and social protection programming. Why is this important? Because what typically happens in communities is they, in order to make up the lost income, they sell their assets or they develop other negative coping capacities. So by protecting them against the worst of the shocks and the stresses, you're able to avoid these negative coping capacities. And in the case of Mongolia, what was happening recurrently is after they had sold off their livestock or whatever, they would then displace. They would then move into the urban centers, into the surrounding areas of Ulaanbaatar, and from there they would then be exposed to other types of disaster risk. So it's really about building up that resilience, shoring up that resilience so that you do not have communities have to resort to being displaced because they are able to withstand the stress or withstand the shock. Of course, this goes beyond early warning. It's really ensuring that you have in place anticipatory action, social protection programming, social safety net, cash-based assistance, and all these issues. But being able to forecast in advance that this is likely to happen allows you to put these measures into place.
Thank you so much. Maybe we can hear from Simon as well, from his experience.
Thank you, Rania. In my perspective, I think warning system actually makes difference because from what we have experienced in our community, if you could have this warning system earlier, and when I say effective warning system, because in past days we have been forecasted maybe we'll have cyclone maybe in next month, but after next month you found out that there's no cyclone. So it's like now people have seen like this it's not happening. It's not they are not sure, so they take it as normal. So in our community that day, our Tanzania Meteorological Association forecasted that they could have heavy rainfall in that area, but this information didn't reach to everyone in our communities. Not everyone had this information that something like this might happen. So I think we need to have this effective warning system, and also we need to make sure that this information arrives to everyone in simple language so that they can understand, and not receiving only information, and also measures. How can they respond and how can they adapt in such kind of situation or disasters? Thank you.
Yes, hi, my name is Susanna. I also work for IOM in the global office in Brussels. And I have a question for Simon. Now that you're a youth delegate, you work more with UN agencies, United Nations. What would be your expectation, or what would you want to get out of cooperation with the UN, with local communities? What do you think is maybe missing, or what could be done also involving younger persons in these programs, for instance? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. What I expect from my community is awareness. From this event, I've noticed that our community, first they don't know that there is a climate change and everything, all this. They don't know about these stuff. So everything that's happening, sometimes they link it to faith and everything. So what I expect is we need to have these programs to we capacitate our communities so that they can understand what they are facing or what they need to expect to happen. So this is what I expect. And also another thing that I expect, we need to have what can I say, disaster preparedness measures. And in this disaster preparedness measures, we need to include youth and children in these measures. As we say that migration sometimes can be an option of adaptation. So we need to make sure that these children, youth who are most vulnerable, when they choose to move from one place to another, they are protected, and if they decided to stay, they are also protected. So to avoid that they're moving from a worse condition and they are going to another worse condition. That are the things that I expect from this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon, and thank you for bringing the protection length. And definitely, protection is an overarching umbrella in every action we do, not only us as UN agencies, whether IOM, UNDRR, UNICEF, and others, but also as NGOs, civil societies, active groups, as well as governments. So definitely you bring a very important lens that we really, really appreciate. I would like to introduce Jose Carlos from the EU. Please to sit. But before I give the floor to our guest, Jose, maybe I will ask Loretta to give us her final word of wisdom before Jose introduce our regional EU-funded program.
Well, I don't think I have a word of wisdom, but what I'm very happy to see at this COP has the fact that displacement and mobility has been so high on the agenda. And I think we're really recognizing now that we need to mobilize far more efforts to address this. Now, part of this is due to IOM's, great advocacy, but also part of it is just disasters are leading to high levels of displacement, and this is bringing compounded risks to countries, and that far more action needs to be done. When I started work in DRR 5 years ago, we were not talking about displacement, and now it's a priority for us, and mobility as well. So I think bringing more agencies together, bringing more sectors of government together to work on this issue, from a prevention side, from a preparedness side, from a durable solution side, is very critical, because unfortunately the hazards are not going away. So we have to really focus on reducing the vulnerability and exposure and the impacts. So that's what I would ask IOM to continue doing, as you've been doing so well.
Thank you so much, and definitely thank you so much, Loretta, and definitely we will continue doing that. And I think when we talk about displacement and migration, we talk about people. And this is the most important thing. And I'm so glad that Baku principles on human development, focusing into health, water, food, but also the Baku call for peace, climate and peace, integrated climate, migration and displacement. These are people, these are affected population. This is what we are all working for. So I'm so glad that we cannot do it alone. It's all of us together. Youth activists, African Union, UNDRR, EU, all the community to come together and advocate for the people affected, including the women, children, elderly people, displaced communities, etc. So thank you so much for that. And this brings us to action. And I would like to thank the European Union, Jose Carlos, team leader of climate change, DG and EMPA, to announce and to actually describe the regional response to climate displacement in Sub-Saharan Africa program, which is a big program supporting different countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, looking into opportunities into gender responsive and child sensitivity comprehensive approach, linking prevention of displacement with nature-based solution. So we're so happy that you've been able to join us, and I think you're the best person who can describe the project and the expected impact and how we can work together on that as one family, complementing each other efforts in such very difficult times.
Thank you so much, Rania. Can you hear me well? Well, I'm going to take this out because it's a bit annoying to talk with the headphones on. First of all, sorry, because, my director, Carla Montesi, should be the one here. She's in Azerbaijan, but at this moment he's at the Kyrgyzstan pavilion discussing restoration of uranium sites for the country that we've been promoting to the European Union. I arrived just like 5 minutes ago, and I could listen a bit to Loretta and to Simon. You were talking about early warning systems, Simon, Loretta. I catch the first word I catch, it was anticipatory action. So this is music to my ears. I mean, this is exactly what we are promoting. I can talk about that, but it's not what we're here today. It's more about the announcement of this new EU initiative. It's the Regional Responses to Climate Displacement project, which is funded by the European Union and implemented by our colleagues of the IOM. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for organizing this event. It's lovely, and it's lovely to see so many young faces here, like interested about this topic. So it's about 100 million euros. We are covering 9 countries. So those are RDC, Burundi, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, Madagascar, Comoros, Mauritius and Seychelles. I'm hoping I'm not forgetting anyone here. And this is about two regions. This is the Lake Tanganyika Basin, and this is the Western Indian Ocean Cyclonic Basin. So this project will be implemented in these hotspot areas where communities are either displaced, refugees, or at risk of displacement. We will support a big range of activities, including climate resilient agriculture, it's about climate resilient water management, it's about environmental restoration, but it's as well about disaster risk reduction and early warning systems. We will be working with local communities, with civil society organizations, and with regional institutions in order to ensure that this project is really tailored to the specific needs and context of each one of these countries. It's honestly one of the biggest projects we have in this domain. I mean, 100 million euros in the case of the European Union. We always work with grants, so this is 100 million euros in the form of grants. And we expect and we believe that this project will make a significant contribution to sub-Saharan Africa. In any case, we look forward to look together with many of you, with the IOM and with many other partners, and to promote sustainable development and human security in this region. So I will try not to be longer than this, because I know that everyone is rushing from one event to the other. But thank you so much, Rania, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you for introducing the project. Don't think that we will let you go. I will wait until you put your your headset. But maybe since you introduced the project, maybe we can open the floor if you don't mind. I'm sure a lot of the colleagues here would like to ask you some question on the EU direction on supporting different governments. So let's take from your time one or two questions if possible. So I'd like to open the floor if any of the colleagues have a question for the European Union.
Thank you very much. There's been talk during this COP, and now that Trump has been elected, of moving from grants to loans. And I want to ask if the European Union is going to continue giving grants, or if it'll change as well, especially with sums like this. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And I can respond very briefly and very simply to you. We are continuing with grants approach. So this is basically our approach. And the European Commission as such, it's not a bank. So as an institution, the only means and the only support that we provide at the basis, it's grant money. It's true, and it's good that you are asking me this question. It's true that more and more we work together with our European Union member states. So basically, I don't know if you've been like in other panels with colleagues from the European Commission, but our new initiative is called the Global Gateway. So it's about 300 billion euros as an offer for our partner countries. And it's not only the European Commission, it's the European Commission with the EU member states and with our development banks, the European Investment Bank, AFD, KfW, and all the others. So when we look at all these offers, it's bigger than grants. So there we are talking about grants, we are talking about loans, we are talking about equity, we are talking about guarantees. So this is what we are seeing it's needed in order to increase the possibilities to leverage climate finance. But if you are asking about the European Commission, at the core, the main funding is grants. And this is the fact that Trump is being elected, it's not going to change this matter.
Thank you so much. I think this is great. And I know Loretta want to add something.
Yes, I won't answer on behalf of the European Union, but I do want to share a piece of information with you. We have developed an observatory to look at financing of early warning systems. And we've noted that over the past decade, $3 billion has been invested in early warning systems globally. But when you look at it a little bit more carefully, this is through 9 financial institutions, multilateral development banks. These were largely in the form of loans to 5 countries. So there's really underinvestment in the form of grants to many of the countries that need this investment for early warning systems. This is just to give you an example of the challenge at hand, and I thought it was an excellent question, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Loretta. As it's good to know that things will not change dramatically, but we also have a hope. Yeah? World Bank has actually announced 120 billion through the World Bank and Multilateral Development Bank and others for the climate action. So it's another thing that to look at. Loss and damage. They have now a new executive director. They are operationalizing the fund. They want to look for opportunities for quick response plans, as well as the Green Climate Fund. They're actually doing a reform to have a quick and fast disbursement of fund to countries. And we had Minister of Climate in Somalia who just announced that she got the fund from the Green Climate Fund in 5 months, which is great. And the fund now is not only, Somalia is not only experience of a country in Africa where they got the money in 5 months, but it's also a country that has been affected by multiple crises. So it's in a humanitarian situation, displacement situation, as well as a climate situation. So there is always hope, or maybe I'm an optimist, but I see a lot of hope, a lot of opportunity being here today, having young people across the globe coming interested to listen and to learn and to share and to go back and support their communities is giving us all hope. If there is no further question, I would like to thank our panelists, and I would like to thank our Simon, our youth champion, as well as the EU for such a very interesting conversation. And let's keep the hope.
I thought it was open. It was not a very long conversation.
Yeah.
I hope it was fruitful. You were mentioning the Loss and Damage Fund. I have colleagues at the moment working on that in a different room, and indeed we have a lot of expectations as well. You were mentioning rapidity, like access. It's about, because this is one of the issues we are having, how difficult and how lengthy our partner countries are getting access to these global climate funds. And we have to work together in order to improve that. And we have to work together as well in improving the access of different type of organizations to these global climate funds. It's not only about rapidity, it's about which organizations can access those funds. And then it's about innovative ways of working, right? I think anticipatory action you were mentioning, I don't know what you said, but for example, anticipatory action, disaster risk finance, using the risk pooling mechanisms that we have across the globe, using the global shield as a way of pre-arranged finance, those are all instruments that we need to use better and understand how to mobilize them better, because we think they can have a huge impact on the life of vulnerable people in the face of extreme weather events.
Thank you so much. This is the innovation is another aspect, and an IOM launched during the General Assembly the Climate Mobility Innovation Labs with focus on Africa, Asia, and the Pacific as a start. And definitely we cannot do that alone. We do it with academia and science, we do it with the communities, we do it with other UN agencies, sister organizations to complement each other, whether across the different service delivery, because when it comes to climate change, we had a session before this on health, on Simon mentioned protection, on disaster risk reduction and preparedness, but also on shelter and wash and infrastructure. So it's a long way to go. And I think that also the Climate Mobility Innovation Lab can contribute in bringing all of us to support innovative solutions to be mainstreamed in different countries. But again, no one agency can do it alone. It needs our collective commitment, ambition, and also determination to make it happen. So I would like to see if anyone wants to have any last question, or shall we give you 5 minutes to have a break? Okay, perfect. Thank you all. This was really interesting, and we appreciate all the contribution.